Oh, right. Thanks for joining me, everyone. Charles Moscowitz here, doing my thing hopefully every evening around this time. I'm trying to build some consistency. The flagship station for the show is Rumble, even though I am on a somewhat of a pirate YouTube. I was shut down from YouTube a while back. Elena Barbera is my guest, the based mother, she calls herself. She has created a documentary called American Groomer. She had a well, I am sorry to say had, but a tremendous TikTok station, which is what brought you to my attention, Olena. You were doing cutting edge things. Um, don't be discouraged because I mean, what I've done and what a lot of people have done that are similar to us is I have found all of these various stream services so that it's sort of like playing, that game that they have in the amusement park when you hit the head of the gopher and then another one pops up. They'll hit one down and then another one pops up, and
Yeah.
I've consistently been able to keep the program going. I'm a former radio talk show host in Boston, who is making somewhat of a comeback online, and I've confronted this whole censorship regime. And when I say censorship, I could talk about all of the things that we're going to talk about on conventional radio. Jeff Kuhner does it, as you probably know, in WRKO. And, it's completely incompliant with FCC standards, but online they don't have those same standards and they can decide arbitrarily to take you down. And I think there was a major censorship kick in sometime around 2019, 2018. I
Yeah.
noticed it. The algorithm, everything kind of came to a standstill. And then it culminated in President Trump being taken off of Twitter, where he lost 60 million followers overnight. And they shut down Parler, which was competing at the time
Yeah.
with Twitter, at that time owned by who I forget his name, Dorsey, Jack Dorsey, now owned by Elon Musk. It's a little and Getter and Gab, BitChute, and all of the rest. I have all of them on my website. You're dealing with the same phenomena. Let's hope it gets better as President Trump, thank God, was elected. And amazingly, in spite of a huge campaign of censorship, they couldn't stop him. And they have not been able to stop voices like yours who are ringing the bell on a particular issue that really not only comes home to me as a parent and to other parents, but it's a serious question of the direction of our culture. So, Elena, talk a little bit, if you will, about your documentary here, American Groomer.
Hello. Thanks. First of all, thanks for having me tonight. So my documentary was born out of my general mistrust for the mainstream media. So I had been watching the media for a few years, and I would see something play out with my own eyes, and then I would see their reporting on it, and it was two totally different stories. So, like a lot of people, I started feeling like I needed to do my own research on everything. And when
Mhm.
I saw them talking about these people who were banning books and removing books from schools and, violating First Amendment rights, I thought, well, I am certainly not for censorship. Let me go. I don't trust you guys. So let me look into this myself. And I ordered the books that were most commonly talking about. And I read them cover to cover myself. And what I found was absolutely vulgar, vile, pornographic material that is not appropriate for any child. I don't care if it is the 12th grade in high school. It is completely inappropriate for any K to 12 school. And I started to do more research and found out that these things are in schools in all 50 states,
Mm.
that teachers unions are pushing it, and that one of the biggest problems is the American Library Association, which helps to run public and school libraries, and the librarians are doing it, and teachers are participating, administrators, and I just, my mind blew. I started telling people about it, and they would say things like, that can't be happening, or that may be happening, but it's only in like some blue state somewhere. And I realized I had to do something about it. So I had a little bit of experience on YouTube, very small, and then I turned, I said, okay, that's the skill I have, and I'm going to make a documentary, and that's how I got into it.
Wonderful. And I know that it's safe to say that the big teachers union, the National Education Association, has always been a pretty left-wing outfit, going way back to the time of John Dewey. And my dear friend, the late great Dr. Samuel Blumenfeld, has written several books about this. And he did hours with me on the radio. And also the Library Association has been co-opted by the left, probably starting, I don't know, in the 1950s, as far back, and that they're all on board with this agenda, which is basically to introduce gay porn into the schools. That's what it comes down to. I had to talk about this with someone, and I said, they're putting gay porn in the schools, and they're not putting straight porn. They wouldn't. You
No,
wouldn't.
they are. They are.
They are.
Do not
All of
think, oh, I can read you things that are as white and straight as they come and absolutely filthy.
So then why, you would think that in any sane society, putting aside moral society, we would protect the innocence of children. Children are not old enough emotionally, mentally, physically to understand these issues. There's a reason for that. It's a very rational reason, one that goes back in history, goes back probably to the times of the Romans, where you protect children from sexual matters. Why are they know this? Why are they doing it, do you think?
I've seen a multifaceted attempt to normalize pedophilia.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really sick thing to even come to realize, but to be out here saying it and trying to wake people up to the fact that that is exactly what is happening. They are talking to pre-K kids in 3 and 4-year-olds about their genitals and how they feel about their genitals. And they're talking, and asking little kids who they're attracted to, about their sexual orientation and their sexual preferences.
Right.
There was a time, back when you and I were kids, if somebody talked to a child like that in the kindergarten, that teacher would be gone. They would probably never be heard from again.
Right. It'd probably be charged with a crime, because we are talking here about criminality. It is illegal to sexualize a child, not to mention have sex with a child, of course. And that, 10 years ago, I remember telling my young daughter at the time, she's now an adult, that mark my words, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, pedophilia is going to be normalized. And oh no, of course not. You're wrong, Daddy. Now, the fact of the matter is that at that time, I happened to find out about this conference that was held in Montreal with so-called sexologists and psychologists, and that was exactly what they were planning at that conference. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but they basically decided that they would try to market pedophilia not as a perversion, but more as a, quote, orientation,
Yes.
which implies that there's nothing you can do about it. It's who you are. So that already takes away the moral judgment of it and begins the road toward legitimizing and normalizing it. And that ever since then, that has been what they are doing. It's observable, and they're not there yet, thank God, because if anybody touches a child, I mean, that's a crime, and they'll be, as far as I'm concerned, they should be strung up in prison.
Well, here's the thing. No, you're right. They're not there yet, but in some ways they are, right? They've made great progress in their efforts. So those people who say that, pedophilia is an orientation, they don't even want to be called pedophiles anymore because it has a stigma. So they are calling them minor attracted persons.
Yes,
And
that was in the conference, by the way.
Right. And the latest thing that I just heard this week is that if you think you want to tell a child that something is inappropriate for them, that is discrimination known as ageism. So we are now, they're suggesting now that we should put no limits on anything for any child. And that's part of it. That's part of the problem. In most states also, we have what are called obscenity exemption statutes. So you know how when we were kids, we had newsstands, right? And you couldn't go up to the newsstand and buy a Hustler magazine. You had to be over 18.
Right.
And that's still true.
They had to wrap it in like a paper bag or something. I mean, you couldn't
just to cover. Right. They covered it. There was like a piece of paper in the plastic. They covered it in plastic, put a piece of paper over the front so you could just see the name of the magazine and not the picture.
Right.
Because it is, there are what are harmful for minors statutes, and it makes it a crime to sell that to a child, to
Right.
give pornography, even to give it to a child. But in most states, if you give that same magazine to a child in a school or a library, you will not be prosecuted because there's a criminal exemption, because you can say it was for educational purposes, and then you will not be prosecuted. Same child, same material,
Mm.
different threat. You just crossed it over a threshold into a different space. So
They're remarketing it. I mean, this is how, like in the 1960s, they introduced pornography into mainstream movies. They said, "Oh, this is art. This is expression," right? Instead of what it actually was, which was TNA. So now they basically mainstreamed it, and now they're doing the same tactic with with pedophilia, with porn. It's something else. It's like they're moving it's like three card Monte. They're moving the ball.
it is, and when you're talking to children about sex and showing them sexual materials they're not ready for, that is sexual grooming, and
Oh,
what that's not. And grooming is nothing but non-contact sexual abuse. So you have that, and then
yes.
they are primed and ready to go for contact sexual abuse. They're going to sexually abuse each other because they don't know what they're doing. They are more likely to be sexualized by a predator who they know. It could be a coach, a teacher, sadly, a clergyman, anybody, right? An uncle.
Mhm.
And then they're more likely to be lured and sexually abused online. So they're for predators online who see a kid who's got a little lonely, no one's paying attention to them, the kid's in the phone, that person will get the kid to send nude pictures. They have to build trust. Very quickly, they can build trust with a kid.
Well, no, that's still a serious crime, though. I mean, if you send a nude picture over like the internet,
It
uh,
is, but when you have a book like this is called Let's Talk About It. This is in middle schools around the country. There's a page in here that shows kids how to take a nude of themselves but cover up identifying marks. Because it goes, this may be, you should check local laws because this may be illegal. What kid is checking laws? But they're normalizing it for children. So
right?
yeah, just because it's against the law doesn't mean, really, it doesn't mean
Well,
people aren't going to do
they're
it.
more than normalizing it. They're actually glamorizing it. They make it look cool. It's
Yeah.
like in the 1960s, certain rock bands made taking dope look cool and
Yeah.
drugs. I know a lot of people who are no longer with us today because of that.
Yeah.
As I'm sure you do too. So you have them, making this into something that, well, I want to be. It's fun. I want to be part of it. I want to be one of the cool people. It's like it draws you in. It's a marketing campaign. I mean, they marketed like they marketed cigarettes to women in the 1920s. I mean, it's like it's a marketing technique that's the
Yeah.
father of marketing, Edward Bernays, wrote a book called Propaganda, where he actually showed all of the techniques that they would use to sell cigarettes. He made bacon and eggs a normal American breakfast just because he was hired by an agency to do this. It's how to introduce a product, and that's how I think they look at this thing. Now, of course, the darkest part of this whole agenda is the trans agenda, and now they're telling young boys and girls, oh, you have some same-sex attraction or something or whatever it is. You're actually a girl in a boy's body or a boy in a girl's body, and we're going to change you so you could be your true self, which means, I mean, the sex change operations and drugs that have been banned, by the way, across Europe now, because they actually weaken the bones of a young person.
Yeah.
You're no
Among
longer,
other things. Yeah.
and then they'll say, well, if you're against this and you're against the rights of trans people, as far as I'm concerned, if someone is, like the famous case Christine Jorgensen, right, World War II veteran, went to Denmark, became, transitioned to women. The old joke was he went abroad, he came home abroad. Nobody cared. I mean, that was his business. Maybe we might think it's a little weird, but you have consenting adults who made a conscious decision, who is mature, who is able to make a decision for themselves. So be it. That's fine. I mean, that's their business. We're not talking about that here. We're talking about pre-adolescent or adolescent children who are not really able to make those kinds of decisions. They're not prepared or mature enough mentally, emotionally, or physically. And, we have so many other restrictions on children for the very same reason. A child can't go in and buy a bottle of booze or cigarettes for good reason. I mean, we have laws in place to protect the health and the welfare of children. It obviously makes sense. And yet, not only are they doing this, but all of the major institutions seem to be on board, including hospitals, including one in Boston. I'm not going to mention which. You probably know what I mean.
Yeah.
Who are they
Uh-huh.
have departments which are doing what they call gender affirmation or some garbage.
Yes, gender affirming care. And that hospital that I suspect you're talking about
Mhm.
has a process by which they evaluate children. They come in, they have a psychological evaluation process, and before they are willing to give the child medicine or surgical procedures, and that process lasts an entire 2 hours. 2 hours, one
And
session, 2 hours, and then they start giving a child hormones and puberty blockers and planning surgeries.
and this is all there's big money involved, by the way, in this. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw that with the shutdown of USAID, how much money they were pouring into this whole issue. And we're not just talking about transgendering mice here. We're talking about support for hospitals to do this kind of thing around the country. And, they make an issue out of the fact that I think in the state of California, they can do it behind the backs of parents. And they can do it, they can change a child's name to a she or a he without telling the parents. That's horrible. But the point I would like to make on that is that I don't care. Parents don't have a right to do it. Does a parent have a right to sexually abuse their child? They say, oh, well, you shouldn't interfere with a parent's relationship. Nonsense. Parents don't have the right to do these kinds of things to their children. It's child abuse. They should be in prison for
Well,
doing.
yes, I completely agree. And they talk out both sides of their mouths. On the one hand, you shouldn't interfere with a parent who wants to medicalize their child and perform, and cut off healthy body parts. That parent has the right to do whatever they want.
Right.
But at the same time, they're also taking children away from parents who say, no, 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 I do not want to do that to my child. Get away from my child. And those children are being around the country taken by the government from their parents, because they'll say the child has gender dysphoria and needs this treatment, and the
Or else
parents are denying it.
they say.
Or they'll say they'll commit suicide, which has already been proven to be a lie.
Right.
But
I mean,
parents who say,
yeah,
my child is beautiful the way he or she is, we believe in God. We believe the child was created perfectly by God, and we're going to get through whatever depression and anxiety this child has together. We'll find a way. They're saying that is evil, and that is the abusive parent. It's absolutely upside down. It's nuts.
right. And it's very strange how many people have kind of imbibed this. I mean, I've heard some horror stories. I heard this father interviewed who said he ended up not only getting divorced, but he has no access to his son because the wife has decided that he's really a girl, and he can't do anything about it. It's horrible. It's heart-wrenching that this is going on, and it's becoming very common. You cannot defend your own child, and you might have a spouse who's gone crazy and is doing these sorts of things. I don't understand. I mean, maybe it's this is something that my friend Dr. Samuel Blumenfeld used to talk about, how the education system has dumbed people down so much that maybe we now have a crop of parents who are products of that and who just they've completely lost their moral moorings or their common sense. They just don't have any idea, so they can be manipulated in this way.
I think that people, I mean, there are probably a lot of different reasons. Everything you just said, there is an absolute absence of moral foundation. I believe you can see this happening right from when the nation started to drift away from God.
I agree.
And start to demonize God and religious people, which they now are actively outwardly doing, and against Christians, against Jews. I mean, it's nasty here. So that was one of the problems. And then the self-idolatry epidemic, I'll call it, here in America. It probably started in the 70s or 80s when they started with something nice called self-esteem. Remember when everybody all of a sudden was talking about
Right.
you got to feel good about yourself? And
Right.
now it's you have to be completely obsessed with yourself and all that matters is you and what you want. And that includes parents. And a lot of young parents were raised in that, and that's another further step from God and morality and
Sure.
a common ground. And then they are teaching young people in schools to have a victim mentality. And so you're either the oppressor or you're the oppressed.
Well, that's critical theory.
Right. But
Yeah.
that's not just about race. So
No.
that's expanded into anything. So if they create an oppressed class, they created the transgenders and they create an oppressed class. Well, now we must love them, accept them, affirm them, and fight for them, even though they're hurting children and nothing good is coming out of it.
No, I think that's, yeah, as I said, that's critical theory, and it applies to all sorts of, it's almost in everything now. It's not just race theory. It's, you
Yeah.
name it, everything is that people are put into two categories, and it's the Marxist, dialectical conflict between the two, and that they keep it going. They keep the fighting going as a way to create a new sort of a person. Transgender is just, I think, also simply a symptom of a bigger issue, which is transhumanism. But that's another subject for another day. Elena, talk about again your documentary here. It's American Groomer, because I really would like to help you get this thing out to as many people as possible, especially as we face the censorship, and this is a real, bugbear. I mean, this topic for the establishment.
Yeah, I think what I'm trying to do here is wake every parent in America up to the fact that we have 50 million kids in American public schools, and there's pornography being fed to these children in the school libraries, in classroom libraries, on summer reading lists, on suggested reading lists. And what they're doing to these kids is messing with their minds and creating a life of trauma for them. And the film is short and sweet. It moves fast. It's 36 minutes. It is free to watch on my website at americangroomerfilm.com. And if you go there, you watch it. I ask, you can reach out to me if you have questions. I am doing, interviews and conversations like the one we're having. I'm doing viewing parties online for people where then I'm asking questions after, because I want people to get together, watch it with the parents in their schools, and then they can find out, and then I can help them find out where these books are in their schools and what they can do about it. Because if this requires by law, this isn't something that Donald Trump can fix with the swipe of a pen.
Right.
I'm trying to get his attention because I would like for him to be talking about it, but he needs.
Although he did swipe the pen on this one.
No, on gender ideology he did, but it still didn't really change anything. I mean, they're so committed to it. So if they don't stop, he'll take away the federal funding. They don't care. They'll just raise taxes on their people and make up the money. They don't care.
There'll come some radical judge will step in and say you have to fund this.
Yeah,
and, so
they're committed. So, but the porn in the schools is a different issue altogether that must be dealt with on the school districts level, on district by district, and there's like 13,000 school districts in America. So we need Americans to step up and stand in and protect our children.
I mean, I'm trying to think of some of the things that we can do. I mean, right here in Boston, of course, Mayor Wu vetoed an attempt by the school committee, the city council, to have an elected school committee, and said she gets to appoint them because she's afraid that maybe somebody like me and someone like you might run for the school board. But you may live in a community where they do have an elected school board, and you can run. You may be a grandparent. You may have an empty nester. You may be a teenager. You may have a little extra time from your work. Any ordinary citizen can do this. I've done it. I ran for office. It's an incredible experience. And even if you don't win, you're going to get enough media attention that you can bring this issue up and get it into the public consciousness. So it's really I view it as a civic duty to, especially with this issue, to run for your local school board or get on a local school committee as a citizen advisor. There's all these things that exist out there in your community that you don't even know about, that a little bit of research you can find out about, and you can get into it and then bring these things up. because it just takes a few people in a community to blow a whistle on this, and everybody is going to pay attention, because most people don't want this. Even most gay people don't want it.
Yeah.
It's not even that. I mean, everybody has a stake in the welfare of our children. Gay people have children, and they have nephews and nieces. I mean, nobody wants their children to be sexualized at a young age. It's just doesn't run. It runs against the grain of basic nature. I mean, so when you bring it up and you do it with kindness, and I would also say don't necessarily bring religion into it, because that's going to be used by them as a bludgeon. You could say, whether you're religious or not, just as a matter of reason, is it a good idea for children to be learning about the blow by blow, if I may, details of sexual acts at their age? No, no one's going to stand up and own that. Well, a couple of people might.
Yeah, I mean, a few of them will.
Yeah.
They have their sick ways of defending it. Actually, you shouldn't bring up your religious views. You shouldn't bring up anything about the homophobe, gay or transgender themes in these books. What you do have a legal stance to help remove is pervasive vulgarity. So the Supreme Court ruled that a school board cannot remove books because of their religious, political, philosophical views if the board disagrees with them. That's a First Amendment breach.
Right.
But they do have the right to remove pervasive vulgarity. And so if you go to a school, no matter what is in there that you don't like, because you're it's morally wrong, forget that. Present the vulgarity and say, this you have a right to remove, and here's why. And that's how you get it done.
That's a great strategy. And they have the hypocritical nerve to complain that this is censorship, book censorship, without talking about which books. I mean, I mentioned my friend Sam Blumenfeld. He was a high school teacher in Quincy for a long time, and the Thomas Crane Public Library in Quincy decided to have a room dedicated to local authors, but they wouldn't allow Sam's books because they criticized the NEA. They were too conservative. He was affiliated with the John Birch Society, so he was banned from the library. So they want to talk about banning books. How many conservative books are you going to find in a children's library? Are you going to see a book by the Austrian School of Economics? I don't know, whatever. No. So, it's ridiculous that they're talking about banning books, because I can show them banned books. My books are not allowed.
Right.
So,
and the books are not banned. You can still go on Amazon. You can go to the bookstore. You can purchase these books if you really want your child to have them, which is a whole other question. But what's age appropriate in school is what's age appropriate. We don't have an advanced calculus book in a kindergarten library. Why? Because it's not age appropriate.
That's right.
So why do we have sex book in an elementary school?
Exactly. And I would also say to people, and I did this myself, go to your local library and check out the youth section, and you'll see these books are all there. And it's really disgusting. It's just it's not appropriate. You're right. They can sell them. They can sell them on Amazon, if people want to buy them, fine. But it's by putting them in the library, by putting them in the education, by putting them in sex education, it is grooming. It is legitimizing these activities. I mean, sex education, when I was in high school, you learned some basic health issues.
Yeah.
We talked about venereal disease and, a few things. That's fine. But now it's like, hey, it's instruction in how to do sex. It is. I mean,
this book has instructions on anal masturbation. This book has QR codes for how to shop for sex toys. This book over here that I have has fellatio instructions. S&M, King.
No,
I can go on. I mean, like way beyond the birds and the bees.
And we've had a couple of courageous mothers and fathers get up in school board meetings and literally read passages out of these books to the school board. And under the Biden regime, of course, the FBI was investigating them, which is very chilling. I think that there's hope now that maybe we'll get back to a free speech issue, and you can bring the book to the school board and read it publicly. and they're like, how can you read this? This is obscenity. Yeah. Guess what? This is what's being, this is what's in your sixth graders school. So,
Right. Yeah.
so that's the point. So Elena, listen, I really appreciate you coming on with me again. Let my listeners and viewers know where they can get this documentary, where they can find out more information about you and your work.
You can go to AmericanGroomerFilm.com. That's AmericanGroomerFilm.com. There you can watch the film right on the website for free. And there's links to get a hold of me, and all my socials, which are the Base Mother, are all linked up on that website also.
Excellent. And listen, I hope you go back on TikTok. Don't be discouraged. Just go back on.
All right. Thank you.
Let's stay in touch. Keep me posted on any developments. I'd like to continue to do this broadcast and follow your work.
All right. Thank you. I will. Thank